All right, so we just got done with a full workout. So now we're moving on to accessories, but we got JimmyHouse here. So Jimmy's gonna go ahead. Jimmy's a black belt and obviously a stud. So what he's gonna do is show us 2 exercises for not only grapplers, jiu-jitsu practitioners, just anyone that wants to build up their biceps, but also keep their arms and their ligaments safe, right? So what we got?
So that's the biggest thing that I want to touch on, is that commonly in jiu-jitsu, a lot of times people neglect the bicep work because you think about it as an aesthetic type of muscle, one that you want to pose in the mirror with. But actually, if you spend time training it, there is a lot of viability in being able to increase the size of the muscle, yes, greater potential for force production into submission and such, but more importantly, be able to build durability in the muscle when it's ever put in a compromised position, say something like an arm bar. You know, the bicep itself obviously runs into the elbow, but it also runs up into the shoulder and ties into the pec. So we're gonna go over 2 different exercises that's gonna help maximize the type of stimulus that we're trying to gain for the bicep as it leads down into the elbow here, as well as the bicep as it leads up into the shoulder and pec. So we're gonna go over 2 basic exercises. These exercises are gonna be great for building muscle too, as well as, again, the durability aspect as well. So first things first. This is not necessary by any means, but I do really prefer nowadays with my training to utilize fat grips when it comes to my bicep work. I would say fat grips, if I were to use them with any type of muscle group, I have found the most benefit, or at least the best activation with biceps in general. So me personally, I prefer a little bit more of an open hand grip when I perform these movements. Now, the biggest thing that you'll see when it comes to a preacher curl is, especially with the barbell, like the one underneath, is that it's very easy to use surrounding muscles to help with the lift, which is exactly what we don't want when we're trying to isolate and strengthen one specific muscle. So a lot of times you'll see like a really heavy preacher curl, for example, and you can even like zoom in on my chest here, but when you go down, you can see my chest squeezing together, my shoulders are squeezing, and even at the top here, I'm always like retracting at my shoulders a little bit. And what that does, it just basically helps me leverage the weight up and takes less of the load, or takes more of the load off of my bicep. So that's why I prefer single arm movements, so that I'm able to open up my chest, get my chest, shoulders, and back more out of the equation, and put more stress directly on the bicep itself. And the way we do that for this particular movement is turn the pinky in, keep the chest nice and big. I prefer to look away from my hand for this particular movement. I will brace with my free hand and keep my wrist curled to keep the bicep engaged throughout the entirety of the rep. Here, we flex the antagonistic muscle being the tricep here at the bottom, so the bicep here feels that load. And typically for myself, I do hold this position for a little bit because I'm trying to accumulate time when the muscle is most lengthened, because we're trying to effectively build some isometric strength here when the muscle is stretched to its max capacity. So here. Now from this position, I generally stray away from doing anything super explosive and concentric, but I'll keep even tension and work just like a bodybuilder, but with the intent, with a little bit more range of motion and with the intent of accumulating a little bit more time in the most lengthened position. So how does this translate? Well, if I'm getting arm barred and somebody breaks my grip and I'm out to here, it could be the difference between you buying yourself 1 or 2 extra seconds to tap, or 1 or 2 seconds to escape. Now, there's some people that, again, when your bicep and your pec and your shoulder are so bound up, you can never know what's gonna happen when somebody puts an unpredictable amount of force on your arm. Something could tear, something could rip. You wanna prepare for the worst possible situation when it comes to grappling in particular. So again, a lot of times with stuff like this, a lot of times there's a bad stigma against curls in a full range of motion. But the important thing to really take into account here is that there's not gonna be any dangerous lift that you can really think of. It's just a matter of, are you prepared to handle the load in that given atmosphere of the lift? So for this one in particular, I'm starting with literally 10 pounds. Some of you might find that doing 5 pounds for sets of 20 to 25 is a great starting point to be able to condition the muscle to be able to withstand heavier load and more volume as you progress this week to week to week. I've built this up to being able to do 80s for 2. That's not necessarily something that you need to do, but to show you the benefit of being able to build this up over a long period of time. You can build really strong biceps in all ranges of motion, not just here to here like you'll commonly see in the gym.
Let's talk about this, Jimmy. What if they don't have a preacher curl bench? Because a lot of people don't have that. What can they use?
So there's always going to be the incline bench option. However, the main thing that I say for this one is you're going to run into the issue of hitting the bottom of this incline bench, therefore taking off the tension at the bottom with the dumbbell. So especially if you're going heavier using thicker dumbbells. So what I generally suggest in this particular case is you could do like a traditional sitting. You could do like a traditional concentration curl with more emphasis on the elbow being farther away from the body here, with that same intention of putting stress on the bicep when it's fully lengthened, the elbow trailing in front of the body. You could do that. Another thing you can do is with this incline bench, let's say I set something such as a yoga block or my own fist or something that has a general level of comfortability to raise my elbow slightly to allow me to still maintain tension of the weight at the very end of this rep. That's gonna be the most important part if you're gonna use this to benefit you in your performance and or durability when it comes to grappling sports. So that's something to keep in mind, is that regardless of whatever type of station you use for this, we have to maintain tension at the end of this rep. We're really trying to build our in-range strength.